Greetings and salutations, Real Estate Undergrounders. It is Ed Mathews with the Real Estate Underground. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today is a special episode of the Real Estate Underground. I am here with Steve Schull, who is a performance coach and someone that I know many of you out in the field know, especially you real estate agents and real estate brokers. Steve, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure and an honor. So for those of us who don't know your background and your business, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do for a living?
Okay. Again, my name is Steve Schull. My company is Performance Coaching. Grew up in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia. I went to the College of William and Mary on a football scholarship. From there, made it with the Miami Dolphins as a free agent. I was not drafted. Played 4 years in the NFL. Played in Super Bowl 17 against the Washington Redskins. Unfortunately, we lost that day. However, I was one of the tri-captains for the game, which was the highlight of anyone's career. Knee injury ended my career after 4 years. Went back and got my MBA at the University of Miami. Spent 5 years on Wall Street, worked with Solomon Brothers on their fixed income institutional desk, and then made a drastic shift, moved from the East Coast to the West Coast, and got into residential real estate. And that was in 1991. And in my first year in residential real estate, with a partner, closed 53 properties. In my second year, was on track to sell 100 homes when I came up with the idea of creating a real estate coaching program, and went to the real estate trainer whose programs I had been attending, Mike Ferry, with the idea of creating real estate coaching. It did not exist at the time. There were real estate trainers and they had workshops and seminars and events, but coaching did not exist. And we launched the first coaching program in 1990. I stayed with Mike through 1996 when I opened my own company, Performance Coaching. Been doing that ever since. In 2007, with two other partners, opened a real estate brokerage here in Southern California called Telus Properties. That eventually sold to Douglas Elliman. I've always maintained my coaching practice throughout. And so here I am, headed into 2025, my 32nd year as a real estate coach. And my business is, all my clients are residential real estate professionals. Many of them are the top agents in the industry. And that's what I do every day.
Awesome. Congratulations on your career thus far. Let's talk about the practice and what drew you to this business. Obviously, working for Wall Street and then selling Main Street, two very different vocations, maybe similar energy, but very different in terms of career path. What drew you to real estate?
Oh, it was interesting. I was listening to a CD. I'm not sure why I was listening to the CD, but it was actually Mike Ferry interviewing two agents in Long Beach, California, Kim and Darryl Rouse, and they were in their second year, and they were on track to sell 100 homes. And I listened to this interview, and it just made sense to me. Selling real estate was a progression. Contacts equal leads, leads equal appointments, equal listings, equal sales. And that made sense. And I met someone who was a residential real estate agent and decided I was going to go in that direction. And that's the direction I went in. And as I mentioned, we got off to a very fast start.
Sure did.
I didn't actually enjoy selling real estate. However, I got it. I was knocking on 200 doors a day. I was calling every expired listing every day. I did it by the book in terms of, if you're going to sit down and do this business and do it in a very disciplined way. And I took all that from my sports background. The advantage of you learn what practice is all about. You learn what's showing up every day, being consistent, working on your skills. So I was fortunate that everything that I learned for my 11 years of playing football, I just took that into my real estate practice and it worked.
Yeah, it's interesting. I am a recovering W-2 technology guy. And when I was hiring people, the two types of people that always popped up at the top of my hiring lists were ex-military and ex-athletes. And for exactly the reason you said, is they know that showing up and being consistent is basically the only thing it's one of the major things that separates the winners from the folks that struggle.
Yeah, and I was very fortunate. My coach with the Miami Dolphins was Don Shula, the winningest coach in NFL history. And he was the winningest coach and still is for a reason. He demanded perfection 100% of the time. And when you're in an environment like that, it really brings out the best in you and pushes you well beyond any limits you place on yourself.
One of the things that I'm always paying attention to is, and we're going to talk about books later on in terms of what you pay attention to, but I know that you're the author of 3 different books. And one of them that was interesting, the title jumped out at me, was Real Estate is Not Rocket Science, right? And you talk about the 6 things that you need to drive a sustainable real estate business. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the title of the book. It's something I've said for a really long time. Excuse me. And I titled the book that way because guess what? Real estate is not rocket science. As I said, what I got initially was that progression. Contacts equal leads, leads equal appointments equal listings equal sales. I've expanded upon that over the 32 years. However, that's still the core progression of real estate. And the deals are complicated. Doing a deal with someone, helping them buy and sell a home, that can be complicated. However, the business is not complicated. And over the 32 years of doing this, I can confidently say I have coached more real estate professionals one-on-one than any other human being on planet Earth. I've logged in over 60,000 hours of one-on-one coaching. And what I've learned in doing that, I boiled it down to 6 core building blocks. One is practicing mindfulness. You've got to get your head on straight. If you don't have your head on straight, nothing else matters. That's the foundational piece. And we'll get into books in a little bit. What really got my attention, that was probably 7 years ago or so, was a book called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. And that caused a major shift from the perspective. I had always grown up in the environment of setting goals and having a plan. And if you work hard enough, you can make things happen. In reading Michael Singer, I really got it. That's all nonsense. The universe is going to do what the universe is going to do.
Right.
And we don't control what happens in life. What we control is how we experience what happens and how we respond to what happens.
Right on.
And that was a big shift in terms of mindset, because everyone's out there thinking, oh, they can make whatever they want happen. And we could do a whole call on this, and I'll challenge anyone on that path. So anyway, building block number 1, practicing mindfulness. Building block number 2, optimizing your time. Time is finite, and most people value money over time. I go in the opposite direction. I teach how to value time over money. 3 is cultivating relationship. And what I've learned over 32 years of coaching agents, real estate is a relationship-driven business. cultivating relationships is job one for any real estate agent who wants to build a thriving practice. Building block number 4 is implementing standards. We adjust to the standards we set in life. If we set a higher standard, we adjust ourselves up to that standard. We set a lower standard, we adjust down. And most people think if they raise their standards, they're going to do less business. It's actually the opposite. When you raise your standards, you're going to end up doing more business because you have to raise every level of your performance to that standard. Next is mastering communication. And this is where Chris Voss came in. Chris wrote a book many of you may have read called Never Split the Difference. And a client gave it to me. Again, this was about 9 years ago now. And that was another game changer for me. And I reached out to Chris directly. We started doing work together. And Chris created in the world of hostage negotiation. He was the former lead international hostage negotiator for the FBI for 7 years. And he created a methodology called tactical empathy. And tactical empathy is the art of influencing others by articulating what they're thinking and feeling without necessarily agreeing, disagreeing, or sympathizing. And basically what tactical empathy is the skill of making people feel understood. And again, when I read this book, I did a 180-degree shift in terms of how I was coaching agents, and we can get into that in a little bit. So mastering communication, building block 5, and then the last building block, acting strategically. It's not about working harder. It's not about acting on impulse or instinct. It's about acting strategically. And so those are the 6 core building blocks that I coach my clients to every day.
Okay. And one of the things that, so I pay attention quite a bit to Tony Robbins, right? And he talks about if you want to change your life, change your standards, right? And so what I'm hearing is something very similar in that relative to the real estate practice in terms of, so when we talk about standards, are you talking about goals or are you talking about how you operate and the team you build? Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
A motivated seller just filled out your web form. If you call back within 5 minutes, you're nearly 4 times more likely to get that seller appointment. But delay your follow-up by even just 10 minutes? Forget it. You're toast. Elevista Connect calls that lead back in 60 seconds, qualifies them, and schedules your meeting. Find out how much slow follow-up is costing you. Free calculator at elevista.com/underground.
Yeah, and this is a really important distinction because everyone thinks in terms of goals. The problem with a goal is you're not in control of the outcome. The only thing we control in life is what goes on inside. Our thoughts, our feelings, our words, our actions, our decisions. We have no control over the external world. And so people are setting goals all the time that they have no control over.
Right.
And this is one of the challenges in real estate is that you only get paid for your results, and yet you're not in control of the outcome of your efforts. It's a big challenge. And so instead of goals, I talk about standards because standards you do have control over. Standards are how you show up in life and how you operate in life. And specifically in real estate, we want to set standards around time, how we spend our time off, which is critical, which most agents struggle with. They get into this. It's interesting. The reason why most people get into real estate, 3 reasons. They want to earn a 6-figure income or a 7-figure income. They want to be their own boss, and they want freedom and flexibility. And they get into the business and they struggle with all 3 of those things, especially the freedom and flexibility part. They end up working 24/7 and they're on call all the time. And so we want to set standards around how we spend our time, how we take our time off. We want to set standards around the clients we work with and the clients we're not going to work with. We want to set standards around the commission that we charge. We want to have standards for how we spend our money. And these are some basic standards. Again, all of these things are in our control. And if we raise our standard in each of these areas, then it forces us to perform at a higher level. So I like to focus on the idea of standards rather than setting goals, like an income goal and how many homes I'm going to sell. Because in truth, there are three forces. Let me back up for a second.
Sure.
Real estate is an industry that focuses exclusively on one thing: production. Agents are measured by their production, they're ranked by their production, and they're paid by their production. And in essence, they're turned into a commodity. So it's all about production. And there's way more to this business than that one dimension of production. One of the things that I coach to, how you do business is much more important than how much business you do. And it's not that more is bad, it's how you get to more that's important. And that's what the 6 building blocks are all about.
So say more about how you do business, right?
The issue, most agents, what they're doing every day is they're chasing after a deal.
Yeah.
They show up and react to whatever shows up in their life. And they're chasing after bright, shiny objects, anything they think might lead them to a deal. The problem with that is you're going to be chasing for the next 30 years. Real estate is a 30+ year career, and chasing is an addiction. And with any addiction, the idea, oh, I just need one more deal. If you're a real estate agent, just think to yourself, how many times have you said to yourself, oh, I just need one more deal. If I can just get one more deal, I'll be okay. Yeah, and you're okay until you need that next deal. And so how you do business, it's not about more. Again, the how part are the 6 building blocks. And each of those building blocks acts as a guardrail to keep you on a path to working in a certain way where you're not chasing, you're not working 24/7, you're not giving away your money, all in a desperate attempt to get a paycheck.
Gotcha. Okay. And so that is the acting strategically part, is being very purposeful and intentional about how you are spending time. Yes?
Exactly. What we do is we take people through what we call a sales audit. And again, this is going to be primarily for a more seasoned agent. I'll get into the new agent in a second. The more seasoned agent, we want to look at their history of transactions. And there's a definite pattern where 50% or more of their business comes from some segment of the market.
Yes.
Whether it's geographic, whether it's demographic, whether it's a price point, whether it's a property type, whether it's a client type. And we want to identify, we call that their green zone, their sweet spot. And that's where we want to focus all their efforts, in the area where they already have a competitive advantage. All business is not equal. There's good business and there's bad business. And most agents don't make a distinction.
Right.
And so we break it down into green, yellow, and red. There's your green zone. That's what you want to focus on. That's where 50% or more of your business is coming from. There's the yellow zone, which is business that's adjacent to your green zone. We'll do that business, but we're not pursuing that business. And then red zone is all the one-off stuff that doesn't add to your business at all. And we're either going to refer that out or say no to it altogether. So acting strategically starts with identifying where's your business actually coming from And we want to double down on that. I coach to the idea of going an inch wide and a mile deep. What most agents are doing, they're going a mile wide and an inch deep and just throwing as much up against the wall and hoping and praying something sticks. I don't coach to that at all.
It's interesting. It's so similar approach in real estate investing world, right? You can send out, like I coach real estate investors and they'll tell me, I tried direct mail. It doesn't work. Okay. Hang on one sec. Tell me about that. I sent out 5,000 cards to 5,000 different households. Okay. And how many responses did you get? I got one. Okay. How many times did you do that? Once. Okay. So that's the problem. You're better off picking 500 of your most of the properties that profile directly to what you are looking for so I do it geographically, right? Stick to your neighborhood, stick to the area. And I would rather touch 500 people 10 times than 5,000 people once. And what people find is that from a branding perspective and ultimately from a relationship, right? You create awareness and then they get to know you and then they get to like you and then they trust you to take care of them when they need to sell their house or need to do something else. And it's amazing the relationships you can create when you just consistently focus on a very narrow slice of the market. Because I refer to it as, and it's a phrase that I borrowed from an old boss of mine, but you're sucking the oxygen out of that market so that when it comes time to sell your property, you're the obvious choice, right?
And that's why my coaching has evolved to repeat and referral, because that's what real estate is. It's a repeat and referral business. And however, most agents, they're out there trying to lead generate and lead convert all the time. They're just fascinated by the idea of getting new business. However, it's really hard to grow your business without that repeat and referral aspect of things.
Yeah. I mean, on the residential side of our business, we've done business with 3 realtors over the last 12 years. And one of them, we did business. She just passed away, unfortunately, but we did business with her for 9 of that. And we've done millions, and I don't even know how many. It's got to be in excess of $10 million worth of business with that one realtor. And it became easy because I trusted her first and foremost. She was probably one of your prototypical clients in terms of how she showed up, how professional she was, how prepared she was. And the fact is that she gave me the straight dope when I asked hard questions, which is invaluable in this business.
And you just use the magic word trust. And again, in residential real estate, every force imaginable is conspiring to turn agents into commodities.
Yes.
And you hear it all the time. You got to know your value, and you've got to articulate your value, and you've got to convince people of your value. That just makes you into a commodity. There's always someone who's going to offer to do more for less. It's simply a race to the bottom.
Right.
What people will pay for is trust.
Yes.
That's what they will pay for. And it's not about value. It's about trust. And you have to build that trust up over time by staying in touch with people again and again. It's real simple. One of the things I talk about, cultivating relationship, that's job one for a residential real estate agent. And what that means is getting your sphere together, whatever that looks like, the people that you're going to be in contact with, whether it's 100 people, 500, 1,000, that's up to you. And these are the people that you're going to reach out to every 90 days. I preach CRM, contact management systems. Everyone needs to use a CRM. And there's 3 parts to CRM. A, getting the right people in. B, getting them set up on the right cadence. And C, making your calls every day to those people. Again, this is not rocket science. And if you do that consistently, over time, you're going to grow a repeat and referral business that is extremely rewarding and fulfilling. But it's not, again, chasing bright, shiny objects.
Right. It's not all the world's a nail and you're one big hammer swinging away. It can't
There
be.
you go. Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
requires sleep, for God's sakes. You got to pick your battles at some point. All right, Steve. So this has been, I could talk for hours with you about this stuff. I've learned so much already. So thank you. Now I'm going to put you on the spot, though, and take you through our final five.
Okay.
Simple lightning round. Just finish these. Just tell me what comes to mind when I ask the question. So the first thing I want to know about is your purpose. What is your purpose?
My purpose is to help people succeed in life. That's my purpose, plain and simple.
And usually the most simple are the best, right? Because it's easy to follow and it gives clarity. I'm also very curious about, and you've had a very unique professional experience, from professional athlete to working on Wall Street and now real estate and ultimately coaching. Invariably, you've had multiple mentors over the years. So I'm curious about the best advice you ever got and who gave it to you.
Best advice I ever got from a client a long time ago. And that advice is this: the only advice you need in life is the advice you give others. I love that, and I live by that.
Interesting. Okay. So what about, I think we learn, in order to be successful, you've got to be continuously learning. And I would submit that, at least for me, I learn more from my mistakes than I do from my successes. And so I'm curious about a professional mistake that you've made, a decision that you'd like to have back, and how'd you recover from it?
I don't think there's anything I'd like to have back. I've failed miserably. I fail every day.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's just life. The way I look at it, if you're not failing, you're not trying, period. I think the mistake that I would say, excuse me, is thinking the grass is greener elsewhere. You know, what I've learned now, the grass may be greener elsewhere. The lawn is just as hard to mow. Focus on where you are and give your best, your highest and best, to the moment that's unfolding in front of you. It's not greener anywhere else. Do your thing where you're doing it.
My grandfather always used to tell me, bloom where you're planted.
There you go. Bingo.
Yeah. Leaders like yourself almost invariably are readers. And so I'm curious about how you continue to improve and learn. What books are you reading right now? What authors or creators are you paying attention to?
For me, I like to read the same books again and again, because every time I read them, I'm in a different place and I'm going to hear things differently. And so Michael Singer, Untethered Soul, Living Untethered, The Surrender Experiment, any podcast that he does, I'm a lifelong student of Michael Singer. So that's my recommendation to people.
Right on. Okay. Fill in this sentence for me, and then we're going to dismount from the final five.
Okay. Success means living with joy. That's what success means. Living with joy. We are meant to be joyful. And yet most of us are letting fear run our life. And if you can make the shift from letting go of your fear to being curious and open about whatever life is going to give you, because again, we don't dictate what happens in life. We only dictate how we experience it and how we respond to it. And if we can experience joy in everything we do and respond with joy, we're going to have an incredible life.
Couldn't agree more. So, Steve, I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today. So, Steve, I've really enjoyed this conversation. You are a wealth of information. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and your expertise with us. I'm curious, when you're not spending time with your real estate agent clients, what do you like to do for fun?
I've got twin girls that are 19. They're both in college. And so love spending time with them, my family. And I really do love thinking about getting back to my purpose in life, helping people succeed. So it's always this constant journey of trying to figure out what is that code of success. So it's just an absolute passion of mine. I feel lucky that I get to wake up every day and do what I do. That's a little bit of who I'm about.
As a girl dad, I have a 22-year-old and a 17-year-old. I'm right
Yeah.
there, brother. If people want to learn more about you or your practice, performance coaching, what is the best way to reach you?
Best way, go to the website, www.performancecoaching.com. You can email us at support@performancecoaching.com. The 3 books I have are all on Amazon. The Full Fee Agent, Real Estate is Not Rocket Science, and the Real Estate Team Playbook.
We'll certainly have you back to talk about those other 2 books. And we could talk for days about your practice and what you bring to the table. But for now, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to meet you. And thank you for joining us on the show today.
I appreciate your time, and everyone have a great end of the year and a great new year. Thank you.
This has been the Real Estate Underground. Don't forget to subscribe. It helps us grow. Until next time, Undergrounders, remember your real estate journey begins with a simple step forward. Now get to it. Bye for now.